What's going on YouTube? My name is Zach with Android Digest, and today I'm going to be reviewing the Galaxy S10 Lite. Now this phone released in the US a little bit over a week ago here, and it released for $650. Now a lot of you are going to be wondering, why do we even have an S10 Lite? Because we already have the Samsung Galaxy S10e. And a lot of you may be wondering why it's not called the S20 Lite. You may be wondering about the branding of the phone. And honestly, a lot of you don't really care about the branding of the phone. You may just wonder, how does this phone perform? How good is it? And what compromises does the S10 Lite have over other S10 devices or over S20 devices? I'm going to go over all those things with you. I'm going to give you some good detail, and I'm really going to give you a good user perspective because I've been using this phone for a bit. I really enjoyed it, and I've got some good thoughts of the pros and the cons, and I want to tell you if you should buy the S10 Lite in 2020. So with all that being said, let's get to the nitty gritty and let's get to the details and get this review started. So you might be wondering why we have the S10 Lite, and I think talking about the branding is important because a lot of people are confused about this phone. You have to remember that the Galaxy S20 was not released yet a couple months ago or a few months ago, and the S10 Lite, it actually released before the S20 in other countries. So if you're in the US, you might be a little more confused, but in other countries, the Galaxy S20 was not yet released, and they released the S10 Lite before the Galaxy S20. Now, if they released the S10 Lite with the Galaxy S20 Lite name, it might have taken away from some sales from the Galaxy S20 name, right? So they didn't want to take away sales from the S20, and there was a little bit of back and forth again. Do you call it the S10 Lite when we already have the S10e? Well, keep in mind the S10e is only a 5.8-inch phone. It is very different from the S10 Lite. This phone is a 6.7-inch phone with a far bigger battery. It's got a better camera than the S10e. So it really isn't the same as the S10e, you need to know. It is very different, and this phone fits a very unique niche. So this phone, the reason why they would call it even the S10 Lite and why they even wanted to make it in the first place is there's a lot of $1,000 smartphones, and that's the path that OnePlus is taking. That's the path that Samsung seems to be taking, where the S20 starts at $1,000, and you could go up even to $1,400 to get a phone like the S20 Ultra. So you've got those phones around $500 or less, and you have a phone like the S20 at $1,000, and there's a big gap there as far as brand new phones. I know the S10 might go on sale, and it has, and it might, fit some of that niche as well. But they were looking to release a new phone so they could have new products across the whole spectrum from $500 all the way to $1,000. And this phone fits in right there at $650 upon release. So they wanted to reach consumers that wouldn't pay for the S20, but maybe you wanted something a little better than the mid-range products that the A series has to offer. Now you might be wondering what comes inside this box. Well, inside the box you're gonna see this super fast charger. So this phone does have super fast charging, which is good. You'll get that charger, and you're also gonna get some earbuds, which is pretty cool. You're gonna get some Samsung earbuds, which is really good to see. So, there's some nice USB-C headphones. I know a lot of phones have been going away with adding that, but you will get this. Now the US version, I have to say, it doesn't come with like a built-in screen protector, and the one that was on it, it had a little peel away thing, so it's not really one you'd want to keep on your phone regularly. And it doesn't come with a case. I know some other versions internationally did come with cases. So it doesn't come with a case, but it comes with a super fast charger, and it also comes as well with these headphones, which is pretty nice. Now, if we take a look at the design of the phone itself, if we look at the back of the phone here, you're going to see the camera lens, and you're gonna see it's a square design that's, again, very similar to the Galaxy S20. So it's an updated design, which is pretty cool. You won't have to deal with it looking like an S10, at least if you get this phone. It'll look a little more modern. And on the back, you'll also see this right here. It's not plastic, it's not glass, it's Glastic. That's Samsung's way of saying it's made of both glass and plastic. And I really like this choice because personally, I don't really care that this phone is made of glass or plastic. I just want the phone to be functional and I don't want it to feel cheap. Now at the bottom of the phone, you are gonna see this one speaker. So that's one of the compromises you're gonna face between this and a Galaxy S10, is it does have one speaker at the bottom. It doesn't have 2 or 3 or 4, just one there, but it is very loud, which is good. It does have a USB-C port here, and it also has no headphone jack, so be aware of that. On the left side, you'll see a micro SD card slot. You won't really need that because this phone does release with 128 gigabytes of storage, so your average user won't need it, but once again, they did provide by giving you that option. And also, you can put your SIM card in that slot as well. There's not much to see at the top, and on the right side of the phone, you're going to see the up and down in the volume, and you're going to see the power button there. Now, if we take a deeper look at the display, again, you'll see very small bezels on it. It's very nice, and this is a 6.7-inch display. It is a 2400 by 1080 resolution, so the resolution isn't quite as good as the Galaxy S10, but it is very, very close, and it is very bright as well. So if you turn the brightness all the way up, you're gonna see it is very bright. In fact, I mean, it's very, very bright, so I have no problems whatsoever when I'm driving. I leave it on almost halfway brightness. I do not have to worry about struggling to see my screen. So compared to other phones around $500-600, I think the screen is fantastic on this. It does not have a 90 Hertz refresh rate. So that is a very important thing to know, but you might be wondering, does it perform? And this phone performs very well. This phone has a Snapdragon 855 and 6 gigs of RAM. Now there is another version that has 8 gigs of RAM as well, but I do not think you're gonna need it because this phone is super smooth. It is super smooth for everyday use. It is very fast. It was good for gaming. It was very good for multitasking. It was good as I was bouncing around different programs. If I was going from the news, quickly swiping out, trying to go to Best Buy or ESPN and stuff like that. And the phone was just very, very fast. I absolutely enjoyed that about this phone. So this phone has great performance. It has a great processor. I know it's last year's processor, but your average user, you really shouldn't care about that. So if you're looking for a huge phone, again, and you don't want to spend all the money, this phone really meets the needs of your average consumer. And I think, you might want to consider buying it, and it really fits in uniquely. Now, you might be wondering about battery. Now, I talked about the battery. The battery on this phone is huge. Another difference between this, even the Galaxy S20 only has a 4,000 milliamp battery, and the Galaxy S20 also has a 4,000 milliamp battery with a 90 Hertz refresh rate, which really drains the screen's battery even more. And you have a phone like the S10, which again, you have a phone like the S10e. The S10e has a much smaller battery. And we get to this phone, the S10 Lite, which has a 4,500 milliamp battery. It is absolutely huge. It is the same size battery that you get in that Samsung Galaxy S20 Ultra, but the screen isn't gonna take as much to power, and this battery is great. I was getting fantastic screen time on it. Typically it would be around 8 hours of screen time, and I would use my phone non-stop with this because the phone was so good I didn't really want to put it down. This phone is fast, it is blazing fast, it is very good. So I've got to tell you, the battery, it is just good. It is amazing, and even if you're going through this phone and it's very fast, it's very smooth, it's got a great display and a great battery, you have to realize, think about all those things. This phone is a great phone for a normal consumer. If a normal consumer wants a large phone and you get a huge battery, you get a great display, and if you're an average consumer, you probably don't care about that 90 Hertz refresh rate. You get a great battery, a great screen, and you also get great performance. I mean, do you really need much else? You have to think about that again as we're going through the review. As far as the camera is unique because it's really good. And if I'm honest, I was trying to look around, like, did people compare this to the Galaxy S10? Because when I took pictures on this, the camera was phenomenal. And I was comparing it and trying to compare the best I could. And it's really hard to tell if this camera is better or worse than the Galaxy S10. If you have an S10, feel free to tell me. Look at the photos that I took. I took some photos of my daughter and also my wife. So the bottom line is the camera is really good and the video is also very good. So I even went out in nature, I took some different pictures, I also took some different videos, and the camera was good. Now, when my daughter did move, she moves a lot, and to be honest, I have this problem with a lot of cameras. You know, when I did take pictures, it was a little difficult. It blurred just a little bit if she was moving a lot. So you are gonna want people to stay still when they're taking the picture. But again, your average user doesn't mind just telling their users to stay still for the most part. And when I did get my daughter actually staying still, again, the pictures look great. So this camera is very, very good. And in some ways it's better than the S10 camera. In some ways it's a little worse. Again, there's no telephoto lens in it. It does have a macro lens, which is really for zooming up super close to objects. You know, maybe you want to zoom up super close to a document or something to take a picture. So the macro camera is good for that. I think your average user would prefer the S10 camera probably because it has that telephoto lens. But outside of those minor details, I mean, bottom line is when you're taking normal shots, you're taking normal selfies of yourself, it's a great camera, and it's got, again, a 48 megapixel camera. So I think your average user is going to enjoy the camera, and it records 4K video if you want to do that in 60 frames per second. And the video also is very, very good as well. Okay, so what about the extra features of this phone? What features does it have? What features are missing? Just remember, I mentioned this earlier, it does only have one speaker on the bottom of the phone, okay? So it's not having dual speakers, that's not something that's there, but the speakers are pretty loud. Now, as far as the fingerprint reader, you want to remember, I mentioned this before, but the fingerprint display, it is an optical display, and that makes it a little bit less secure than your normal fingerprint sensor. But honestly, it's very fast. It is very fast. It's way better than the S10 fingerprint sensor. So I think you're really going to enjoy that if you've been looking for a fast fingerprint sensor. And it does have face unlock if you feel like using that too. Now, this phone does have NFC. It does not have wireless charging, and it does not have water resistance. You know, your average consumer, yeah, you might care about water resistance because you might have a baby like I do that spits on everything. That could be a deal breaker for some of you. But I think your average user doesn't even care about wireless charging, honestly. And yeah, unfortunately, Samsung DeX is not supported on the Galaxy S10 Lite. So if you've used other Samsung phones in the past, like the S10, and you've plugged your phone directly into your monitor, and you've maybe been using Samsung DeX to have a desktop-like interface, that's not really an option here. So I guess that is one of the compromises that Samsung made with this phone. If I'm gonna summarize and just compare it to the S10, it's got the in-screen fingerprint reader. It's got a bigger screen than the S10. The resolution on the display is very close, so the screen is almost as good as the S10. The camera is almost as good as the S10. It's just missing the telephoto lens. Outside of that, missing the water resistance and missing wireless charging, there's not a lot that this phone is missing. It's got the same processor, it is fast, it's a great display, and the battery is actually better than almost any phone out there. I mean, only the Moto G Power has a 5,000 milliamp battery, but this phone has a great battery as well, and it doesn't have the 90 hertz refresh rate, but again, the things you're missing, the 90 hertz refresh rate, you're missing the more secure fingerprint reader, which didn't work all the time anyway. You're missing water resistance, wireless charging. You know, these are the compromises, and one speaker. So those are the compromises you're facing, but then you're getting a great phone with great performance, a great battery life. And the other thing is you're getting a phone with great size. So this phone should not really compare to the Galaxy S10. If you're gonna compare it to anything, compare it to the Galaxy S10 Plus. And I've gotta say, compared to that, when you factor in that even on sale, that phone is not gonna be as low in price as this. I think this S10 Lite is actually priced pretty well. And I think when you factor in all the sales that I've seen in the S10 Lite, feel free to check the links in the description as well. There are some sales going on with the S10 Lite. So when you're thinking about, should I buy the S10 Lite? And you're really thinking about it. As always, it really depends on who you are. If you want the latest and greatest, obviously the S20 is better. But if you're taking a step down and you're a consumer that wants a good phone for a good price, this phone's at $650, and you have to ask yourself what your competition is like. I don't see a lot of competition around $650. You know, I see the OnePlus 7T that's around $500, but this has a 6.7 inch screen, so this screen is gonna be a little bigger. This is also a Samsung phone. Some of you like Samsung phones because of the brand. Some of you like using Samsung Pay. And honestly, this phone with the Snapdragon 855, a great display, yeah, it's never really gonna compete with price if you're comparing it to some, you know, makers of Chinese phones and stuff like that. But if you're comparing it to other phones like LG phones out there, you know, I don't find a lot of phones with a 6.7 inch screen, not with a great display, great performance, and a fantastic battery. So when I factor all those things in, I think your average consumer is really gonna like this phone. And if you're just a normal Joe Schmo out there at home and you're like, should I get the S10? Should I get the S20? Should I get the S10 Lite? If you want a bigger screen, I think the S10 Lite, you should strongly consider it. As long as you don't mind those drawbacks I mentioned, I think the S10 Lite is an excellent phone for you, and I think you need to check out some promos out there that are going to be available through carriers. They'll also be available maybe through Amazon or through Best Buy, and again, I'll have links for some of those, but you know, check out some promos out there, see if it's worth buying. I say for $650, maybe it's priced a tad bit high, but you know, it's still going to be cheaper than the S10 Plus in most cases, at least. You know, there might be a good promo out there, but it's a good price, I think, overall. And if you see it any lower, you see it drop to 600 or 500 or 550, I think it's a steal at that price. And I think it's a steal with some promos that might be released out there. So hopefully this review helped you make a decision. Hopefully it really helped you really figure out what you need help with. If you have any questions, feel free to shoot a comment and I'll be happy to help the best I can to really help you figure out if this phone is worth buying for you. And one way you can support me is by subscribing to the page. Our page has been growing greatly in subscribers. We appreciate it. And feel free to check out future videos because I will be releasing very soon a video on my favorite cases for the S10 Lite. And you might be wondering what cases you should buy. I've got a lot of different cases that I really tried out, and I'll give you my thoughts on them and in detail so you could really see what's worth buying and check it out for yourself. So thanks so much for watching. Hope you have a great day and stay safe, everybody.